Hi, I'm Eric Linask. I'm here in New York City at Cloud Expo, and I'm talking with Ray Potter. Ray's the CEO at SafeLogic. Ray, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
So, what's the latest? What are some of the latest trends that you at SafeLogic are seeing?
Well, it seems like encryption is now cool again, right? I mean, for the longest time, it was just always kind of a nuisance, and then over the last couple of years, everyone seems to be focusing on it, right? From the device on up to the cloud, kind of all through the stack. So that's kind of exciting, and fortunately, we're kind of poised to capitalize on that.
So I would agree that there's certainly a lot more focus, and it is kind of cool again, as you say. What's driven that coolness? I mean, certainly there's a lot of attention and focus in the media around some of the high profile breaches and hacks and things like that. Has that driven it?
Oh, absolutely. So I think it's everything from the Snowden issue to hacks, breaches, and I think just a general concern for privacy, right? And then I think it's also fueled by regulation, right? So that's one of the things that we're seeing most is folks coming to us and saying, we need strong encryption modules that meet federal requirements for encryption or meet healthcare requirements for encryption. And fortunately, we're able to check those boxes for them. But it is often a mandate. But I think people are trying to start building strong encryption into their solutions because it is top of mind.
Typically, does somebody come to you before or after they've experienced an issue?
Um, a bit of both. A bit of both. I'd say for the customers that are planning to sell to regulated environments like federal, that usually is planned and it's built into their roadmap. But we have had the fire drill, calls come in saying, "Hey, we need something now because this happened or this happened to one of our competitors, and we want to stay out of the news." So that certainly happens as well.
And I think it's safe to say we're seeing a lot more interest from government agencies and much more movement around the services, the cloud services that they're using. So I guess it naturally follows then that you'd be seeing a lot more interest from providers looking to sell into the government space.
Oh, absolutely, and actually, with the federal's move to cloud, so they've initiated a program called FedRAMP, right, which is basically accrediting cloud service providers that are serving government, and we've seen a lot of traction with that. Actually, a lot of good innovation and people building some really neat solutions.
What changes when you're working with somebody who's selling into the government space?
Um, I think the largest change is meeting the regulatory compliance requirements, right? Because it's not just a check mark. I mean, it's a lot of documentation, a lot of process, a lot of third-party testing, and those things take time, right? So I think one of the biggest challenges that we face or that our customers present to us is they've got a very fast-moving development cycle. Let's say it's for mobile or something like that, right? Well, development timelines for mobile applications or even cloud, applications with, almost continual deployment don't really meet with these 12 to 14 month certification programs, right? You just can't align the times. So I think that's been one of the biggest challenges. Fortunately, we provide an out-of-the-box solution that allows them to check that mark almost immediately. But I think that is one of the biggest headaches of going into one of these regulated environments. But for the most part, people know that and they accept it.
How do you ensure that you're able to sort of keep up with the changes? Hackers are always trying to stay a step or a step and a half ahead of encryption and security companies. How do you make sure that you can at least try to keep pace?
Sure. Well, I think one thing is making sure that we always test and develop on latest platforms, right? So as new versions of iOS come out, new environments like for 64-bit Android or something like that, we're always making sure that we're building encryption modules to meet those environment requirements. But I think one of the things to remember is that security and encryption is really only one piece of an overall security posture, right? So while we might be able to protect the data, if someone else breaches the access control systems, then they're going to get access to that data anyway. But we do provide that kind of layer of defense for the data itself, both at rest and in transit.
Are there specific trends going forward that you see playing a much more significant role than they have in the past in terms of what you need to do, and more importantly, what your customers need to do?
Sure. So I think one of the trends that we're seeing is a lot more of interest in the wearable markets and connected devices and things like that, right? I mean, everyone's talking about IoT, which happens to play into cloud as well. Um, that's certainly an upcoming trend. It's quite open and almost somewhat nebulous, right? There's no single cloud security answer, right? It's all kind of dependent upon the solution. But yeah, I mean, I think there's quite a few interesting things coming up that's going to, I think, fuel a lot of innovation in terms of security. We're going to have to rethink a couple of ways that we do things, especially as we look at the smaller and more constrained environments. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be a very interesting time.
So when you talk about a market such as wearables, there are countless startups popping up left and right all over the place. Is it going to take some kind of a significant security breach for all those startups to really realize, yeah, take a step back and let's really consider what we're doing security wise?
Yeah, here's the challenge with those folks, right? So those folks are developing, wearable devices. They're, may or not be health related, right? There's a difference between, wellness and health, right? So I think a lot of the consumer plays are just, coming out of Y Combinator. They're trying to get to demo day really quickly. They don't really, security isn't top of mind, right? However, when you start to look at people that are looking at health solutions or FDA type solutions, they are thinking about security and they are thinking about data protection because they have to. So those are the folks that we've talked to, and there's certainly keen interest. But yeah, I think for the general mass market consumers, I don't think there's much of a push because, frankly, I don't think most consumers really notice or care about security, right? They just want to see how many steps they took that day and and measure their blood pressure, right? And unless it's specifically for a health reason that goes to their doctor, I don't think most people are really gonna take too much of an interest in it.
Well, certainly, given the expected growth of the wearable space, it certainly seems to be an opportunity for SafeLogic there. So good luck. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.